to the Becoming You show, where limits get torched and possibility takes the mic. I'm Leah Roling, human in permanent beta, neurostrategist, mom to 3 amazing humans, married to 1 legendary soul, and your no fluff permission slip to stop waiting. Every week, we rewire brain patterns, smash hand-me-down mindsets, and dive into the daring, identity-shifting conversations most people dodge. Ready to turn potential into proof? Grab your pen. Your next chapter starts now. Hello, my beautiful friends. How are you? I always want to start these podcasts with gratitude. Gratitude because you could be doing anything else right now, but you are listening to this hoping to unlearn maybe something that you had picked up, or maybe learn something new that you didn't even know you needed to know, right? So I'm so glad that you're here, that you hit play. It means something truly that you keep showing up for this work for yourself and for who you're becoming. So we're going to dive right in because this is such an important conversation, because it is about conversations. Okay. So I want to take you back to a couple of weeks ago. It was early. I hadn't even had my coffee yet. I'm kind of easing into the morning, and then bam, right? Like what felt like bam, a conversation, right? That I didn't see coming at all lands in my lap. Now, let's be real. There's never a quote unquote perfect time to be called forward, right? Definitely not before my caffeine. My brain was not having it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, really? Now we're having this conversation over breakfast, my favorite meal, like all of the reasons why this is an absurd time to bring a conversation to me. It felt random. It felt unprompted. And to be honest, the conversation that was brought to me was something that I believed that I had moved through, that I believed that we had moved through. Because here's what's happened. I had been patient. I had given grace. And again, this was months ago. I felt I had held space. I had offered support. I had stayed soft. I stayed understanding in that conversation, in that moment, until I didn't. And eventually I got upset. And that moment was what was brought back up. Not just in the moment of the conversation, but a couple of months ago when that had happened. The message that I had received in that conversation was, I felt like your grace had a timeline. And let me tell you, whether that was true or not, it hit. It was a perception that felt like a judgment. And I'll be honest, I didn't handle it well at all. I got defensive, not in necessarily the words that I spoke, but in my demeanor. I shut down. I felt anxiety and anger coming up in me. And then I did the worst thing that I think people do when they have these conversations. I abandoned myself and the other person in an attempt to just move on. And like with most things in my life, if I'm navigating this, maybe you are too. So today, I'm going to share with you 2 frameworks that will forever, I hope, change the way that I live and have these dialoguing conversations. And my hope that it is for you too, because one framework for a conversation is a framework around spark. And that is a conversation that you can have with connection and clarity and change. Okay. I think the best conversations spark that. And that's a framework that I've been using and teaching for a really long time now. And I thought, you know what? I don't think I've ever taught this framework on the podcast. So I'm doing that today. But what I didn't have a framework for, and most of my frameworks come from my own personal experience, is to receive one, to receive a conversation. Okay. And I thought, you know what? If I would have had a tool, if I would have had a framework, I would have been better at receiving that conversation. Pre-caffeine, at breakfast, any of it. So I want to work through one, how to have a conversation, right? That creates connection, that creates clarity, that creates change, right? Change for you, change for the relationship. Okay. And I want to give you a quick framework on how to hear a conversation, how to be on the receiving end of a conversation without doing what I did, without getting defensive, without shutting down, without abandoning myself and the very person that I want to connect with. Okay. So, Spark. S in Spark stands for share the facts. And I hope my nerdy listeners are writing this down, because this framework will change forever the way you have a conversation with anyone. Any tough conversation that you would label tough, it's so important that you have a framework to do it, because if we don't, sometimes it gets met with resistance. It gets met with defense. So this is a framework that you can have with your husbands, with your wives, with your children, with your team members, with your colleagues, with your friends, with yourself, my beautiful ones. So S, share the facts. Okay. Stick to what actually happened. Just the what, right? Facts are not emotional. Facts do not hurt. No one can disagree with a fact. A fact is what is. It can be proven in a court of law. Okay. So what's not a fact is my team member is lazy. What is a fact is that they had proposed that at 2:00 on Tuesday, they would have this report done. The report was not done 2:00 on Tuesday. That's a fact. Nobody wakes up to your label. Nobody woke up thinking, gosh, I'm kind of lazy. I hope nobody calls me out on that today, right? Start with a fact, and the conversation at least gets to go to the next phase, which is P. And in the P, we're painting the impact. Okay. I want you to describe how that moment impacted people, goals, momentum. Keep it honest, right? You want to create safety, not blame. The minute the person that is on the receiving end, and we'll get to that, receiving end feels like they're not safe, there is no more connection. There is no more clarity. There is no more change. There is no more conversation. So we want to paint the impact delicately, but honestly, right? So the impact in the example that I gave about not having something done at 2 that they had agreed to have done at 2, the impact of that is now Mary can't, it makes it harder for Mary to get her work complete, which makes it harder for the end project to get complete. And this is a project that creates massive amounts of value for our business, for the promise, for the impact that we're all here to make. And I know that it impacts you because I know that you're a person of integrity. Period. No one also cares about how it necessarily made you feel, right? Paint the impact of the promise, especially in leadership. Now, when these are interpersonal conversations, that's different. You can for sure share how you feel, but keep it how you feel, right? I felt this because of this, not you made me feel this way. Because remember, no one can make you feel anyway. Okay, I made myself feel this way because this is how I was thinking and this is how I was feeling. That's honesty. That's honesty. You don't have to abandon yourself in it. And then the A, you ask and acknowledge. Okay, this is the moment to lean in and invite their voice, invite their meaning in the pool. You just put all of your meaning in the pool, right? When you painted the impact. This is all of the meaning. And there, it's all just thoughts, you guys. Your meaning is not facts. Facts was stated first and foremost. Painting the impact is when you fill the pool of this conversation with your meaning. The ask is when you invite them to do the same. And you invite both participants to do it without justifying, without arguing, without defending, without explaining, with just allowing other people to feel, to have an opinion. You don't even have to agree with it. You just let them talk. Can you help me understand what happened from your point of view? Tell me what was going on for you when that report wasn't completed on Tuesday at 2, right? And then you just let them speak. And then you acknowledge what they said and you invite more dialogue, right? And that more dialogue comes in the R of Spark, reflecting back. That more dialogue is okay. So I know you wanted to get done at 2 on Tuesday, and I know that we wanted, and I know that Mary wanted it. How do we ensure that we can continue to have high integrity on the agreements that we've made in order to fulfill the results in our role? And this works the same in interpersonal, right? If we really think about what we want in our interpersonal relationships, it's not so much results of a goal to fulfill the progress of a promise. Rather, it's results of connection, results of love, results of meaning, results of growing together and utilizing one another in order to do that. And then the K is know the next steps. What's next for us here with that employee, that team member? What's next? What do you think is next? Well, if it has been a habit where we aren't consistent in meeting deadlines, then we create a rhythm of feedback. Maybe it's every other week. I'm going to check in with you. We're going to put together a coaching plan. If it has something to do with the behavioral, the KBIs, we put together a competence plan. If it has something to do with skill, if the reason why that report wasn't able to get done, it's either a skill gap or a competence gap or a behavioral gap. It's one of those. If it's skill, we put together a competence plan. If it is a behavioral, we put together a coaching plan. Those are our next steps. If it's interpersonal, the next steps are what continued conversations can we have? What are some boundaries that we both want to have? What are some quote unquote rules that we want to play around in order to keep one another feeling safe so that this conversation can, one, come up again, and two, we can grow and make progress in it. So if we're going to apply that to my actual situation, let's say the person sitting across from me had used Spark to bring forward how they felt. They might have said, hey, there's something that I've been holding on to. A while back, I was struggling and you were incredibly patient with me and you gave me space and support. And I felt really seen in that, right? You start with something that's going to immediately make me come off of the defensive. But then when I didn't move forward the way that maybe you had hoped or you expected, I felt like that patience ran out and that your care came with a clock. Can I just share how that shift landed with me? Do you see how then I'm not on the defensive? I can actually see how that shift in my patience might have been perceived like my love was conditional, right? So what I'm hearing is that it wasn't about like you giving up. It was you reaching your edge. right? And maybe I missed that. And can we talk about how to struggle and truth together without it feeling like support has this shelf life? That, my beautiful friends, is a spark conversation. It's clean, it's kind, it's clarifying. It invites both people to the table with safety, and it doesn't vilify either one. Okay. So let's now talk. So that's spark, my beautiful friends. I want to hear how those conversations go. Now let's talk about the side that I was on. I was the one receiving the feedback, or really that perception. And I, as I mentioned, did not receive it well. Right. And so that experience, that actual experience, is what gave birth to this second framework, which I labeled Here to Grow. HEAR, here to grow. I created it not because I had mastered, right, the art of receiving. I certainly haven't, right? Because I wanted to become the kind of leader, the kind of woman, the kind of mother, the kind of wife, right, who could hold another person's truth, their truth, not facts, their truth, their perception, right, their meaning that they're giving to whatever is happening, okay? That I can hold that truth without shrinking, which is what I did, without abandoning me and them, without defending, without disappearing. So this framework is for us. Me and you listening to this. The ones that want to stay grounded, that want to stay honest and open when conversation gets uncomfortable. Because when conversations are easy, we don't need frameworks. It's just easy. We just talk back and forth. But I believe, like I believe with everything, we do not grow in ease. So those easy conversations, they don't grow us, right? These ones, when we have a framework with which we can grow, they transform us. So this is the acronym that I'm going to be practicing, and I would love to know how you're practicing it, is really just how we hear to grow. So the H in here is hold space before reacting. We're just going to hold beautiful space. Instead of tightening up, instead of shrinking myself, instead of abandoning myself, I could have just paused and let it all land. Allow for his meaning to be put in the pool. Remind myself, right, that I create my safety, that I am the creator of my safety, that this is not an attack. This is not an attack, that it's a reflection and only a reflection of their experience. You guys, this is simple, but I'm telling you, it's not easy. It's not easy because we have a brain that wants to protect us, that wants to keep us safe, and we make assumptions that we are not safe. Okay? Holding space means letting truth breathe before deciding what it means. And knowing that at the end of the day, the only way that we will feel unsafe in a conversation like this, unless you really feel unsafe, and that's not this conversation, right, is because of the meaning that we give it. Okay? So hold space. The E, explore the story. Explore the story versus the facts. Okay? Instead of jumping right into my narrative, which is what I did, I gave you grace. What are you talking about? Right? Because in my mind, I gave him grace. I missed the part where he felt like my grace had an expiration date. I missed it. So explore story versus facts here, right? What are the facts here? Guess what the facts were, friends? The fact was I was impatient. Guess what else was a fact? I eventually wasn't, right? I eventually got upset. I was patient. I had grace. And then I wasn't patient and I didn't have grace. Both things are true, right? Their story, my support had a deadline. My story is they didn't see everything I gave. Both stories are valid. Both stories deserve to be unpacked. But when we become defensive in our own facts of the matter, and then we become defensive in our own stories of the matter, we don't create, we don't leave room to explore, to truly connect, because we always have a choice in every conversation. We can either be right in it or we can connect in it. And I will tell you, being right in it is never a winning strategy, because being right typically ends in me losing, not sometimes, every time. Okay? The A, acknowledge their perspective. It's the same A in Spark. We're just going to ask and acknowledge. Acknowledge. I could have said, I hear that. I can see how it might have felt that my support came with an expiration date. I can see that. I actually was patient and then I wasn't. Right? It was never my intention to withdraw love or to put care on a clock. But I can see how that shift might have felt sudden or conditional, or it might have been upsetting. Right? And then we respond with responsibility. That's the R. Responsibility, our responsibility, not what they have to do differently, but what we get to do differently for our own growth journey, for our ability to connect. Remember, the best conversations, they spark. What do they spark? Connection, clarity, and change. Not change of the other person so that we can feel better. Change of ourself so we can become into the capacity, right? So for me, responding with responsibility could have been like, thank you. Thank you for telling me, right? That was probably hard for you to bring to the table, especially since a lot of time has passed. I do want to be that person, that someone who doesn't just offer support when things are easy, but who can stay present, extend grace, even when it's hard. That's the heart of Here to Grow. It's not about taking blame. It's about taking ownership. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. And so this is the framework that I created for myself almost right after that, when I had a moment to reflect on how I showed up in that moment. But it's the framework that I created so that I wouldn't lose connection in the moments that matter the most, so that I wouldn't retreat when I needed the most, or attack when I feel misunderstood, or both. Because listening with love is just as powerful as speaking with truth. That speaking with truth is that spark. That listening with love is that here. So here's what I want to leave you with. Being human means our capacity changes. Our capacity can change, but only when we're courageous enough to explore with curiosity the responsibility of that change. Love doesn't disappear just because frustration enters the room, just because other people's meaning enters the room, just because the meaning that they give it doesn't match the meaning of your meaning that you gave it. Love can be constant in that. And boundaries don't mean that we've stopped holding space. They mean that we're being honest about our own humanity, about the space that we take up too. So I want you to think about conversations differently. I want you to be able to have them in curiosity. I want you to be able to hear them in love. And I want you to begin to believe that when you learn how to spark conversations that are honest, that are hopeful. And when you learn how to hear without hardening, you become someone others trust, not just with their results, but with their reality. That breakfast conversation, it didn't go the way that I wish it had, but it gave me a new framework that I now carry with me, and hopefully you will too. So I hope this episode meant something to you. And if it did, please share it. Please share it. Conversations are an art and a science, and most of us have not had any formal training on how to have one. And they're the most important thing as we seek for more meaningful relationships in our life. So until next time, my beautiful friends, spark conversations here to grow and keep becoming. Have a beautiful one. Take care. Bye-bye. If this episode cracked something open, good. Let it. And then head to leahrolingcoaching.com and grab the tools to rewire the story and reclaim your future. It is yours. And then share this with someone who's still waiting to be chosen, still waiting for permission, and remind them they don't need a breakthrough, that they are the breakthrough. Until next time, my beautiful friends, invest in you and keep becoming.